Okay, we're a couple minutes after. You are in the correct session for project management and tools and organization. I'm Johnny Fox. On Twitter, I'm at Johnny Fox. I work with ProMet Source, ProMet Solutions out of Chicago, where I'm the Director of Development. I'm a certified Scrum Master, project manager. Started out in this did 15 years in manufacturing. For the last 10 years I've done development, both as freelance, custom coding. That turned into project management, and for the last 2.5 years has been Drupal. ProMet is a 30-person company based out of Chicago, founded in 2003. We have offices in San Jose. We have an office in the Philippines. So a fairly young company. Just for a background, I'd like to kind of know who all's here today. So project manager, show of hands. Developers. All right. Clients. Okay, so it's all just so, I'm glad everyone is really excited about, project management tools. It's a place that causes, can cause a lot of pain, and, I think everybody struggles with. Drupal has some particular challenges with project management. In my prior life, I did construction management, and, managing a $4 or $5 million project is not so bad because it takes a year. You have one system you're using, everyone's on it. Drupal, we all hope, is a rapid construction framework. So we're working small projects. We're doing a lot of context switching. We have, a lot of times distributed teams. We have contractors. We have outside parties. How do we all work together? So I think it's a really critical part of our business. So what we'd like to do today, we'd like to cover kind of what we're trying to accomplish with project management and the challenges that relate to that. We'd like to review some of those tools and then do a little bit of a case study of what we wound up choosing and walk through how we use that system. So where this really started is about 1.5 years ago at ProMet. We realized that we had a lot of things to manage, and we had a lot of different systems that were managing those. So it's like, I got to keep up with my time tracking. Not just do I need to know how much am I spending on the project, I also have to actually pay people, and that needs to be accurate. And those two kind of need to match up. And when we're using two systems, that doesn't always happen. We have bug tracking, document storage. We have how do we communicate where we are in the project with a client. What's the priority? In our particular situation, we have, the team in Chicago. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I work from home. A couple of other project managers work from home. So lots of context switching. We also have clients that we work together on development teams, and I need to know what they're doing. They need to know what we're doing, so that we don't get into that merge kind of conflict fun. And project management does involve, since we're developing code, we kind of need to know what's going on with the source control too. Like what code actually affects this particular ticket I'm resolving. So the list when we started much longer than this one, and what we wound up doing was dividing this down into quadrants of, does this really come under project documentation? Is it management information? Is it code related to project management activity, or is it status activity communicating to the customer, bringing in another developer or another resource? How are they going to work with this project that they've never seen before? So what I want to do is kind of just review, and this is by no means a complete set of tools. There are lots of project management systems out there, but having been a freelancer and worked in several different companies. You know, there's a number of these, and as an organization, we could work with them. Since we're at a Drupal conference, Open Atrium, you know, very good tool, built on Drupal. I've used this, built on organic groups. You know, it's configurable. If you do Drupal, you know how to work in it, you know how to manage it. I think you guys, Media Current uses Open Atrium, done some of their own customization to it. It's a really good tool. You know, we also, in ProMed at the time, we were using Basecamp a lot. Basecamp's a really excellent tool. Really kind of fits more into, you know, it's user-friendly. Clients are able to see communications, really good for meeting notes. You can share files there, but issue tracking, not so much. Atlassian products, when you're in the enterprise space, I see this used, the whole suite used a lot. It's a SAS suite of products, you know, and it's broken into different pieces. Where anybody working with the Jira suite of tools, Atlassian? Okay. Also work with Assembla. Assembla is a bug tracker, has some really good agile tools for developing backlogs. Not as much on wiki and files. You can use that. It is a software as a service. Also has integration with source control, which is very nice. Anyone using Assembla? If you've been around for some time, a couple of these I'm going to go through are just older systems. Bugzilla, I think it was developed by the Mozilla Foundation. Pretty much a typical bug issue tracking system. Believe it or not, when we started this, we were using Mantis. Mantis, very old school. It is definitely just, here's an issue, go take care of the issue. You know, here's your statuses. You know, it's an open source project. But not only is project management just the issue tracking of it, you know, I see a lot of tools like Harvest or FreshBooks. I especially see this a lot with freelance folks working. You know, they do have a project level reporting, but it's mostly just a billing timekeeping system. Most of the firms I know are using, at least in this industry, many of us are using QuickBooks for our accounting systems. And just like I was saying earlier, you know, we all need to pay our help. So at some point, whatever we do on the project management, we have these people assigned, they're working. You've got to tie that in to actually where is the accounting. And if you're working on contracts with hourly billing, you know, we want to report that to the customer accurately. So since we're in development, you also have services like Github, which is a source control system. Everyone familiar with Git? You know, lots of projects on here, and I think what all of this really comes down to is that there's really many tools that address any of these individual problems very well. I was speaking with David earlier, you know, and the issue really gets into, you know, as we were growing in ProMed, the issue we found is, you know, I've got one system for timekeeping, I've got one system for documents, I've got one system for bug tracking, I've got one system for client communication, and I've got, I may have said one system for billing. So how do I, you know, I get a phone call, hey, where are we on this issue? You know, and then I've got 5 systems to go check and figure out where, you know, who worked on it, is it resolved, did we bill it? it's a real challenge for project management. So what we did is we sat down and said, well, for ProMet, what are we interested in? And so our goals for looking at a project management tool was we are really committed to open source, so we wanted something that was open source and that we owned the product. This may or may not be your set of what would be the perfect fit. If I was trying to get going on a project very quickly and I was not scheduling a 30-person team, I might be just more interested in, what can I get started with tomorrow that covers these issues. We wanted something that was secure. We wanted something that we could extend ourselves, because as we looked at any of these systems, it's like, well, Atrium does this for us, but can we extend it to do this other thing? Or I really like this other system, what if we want to add another field onto it? What if we track our project a different way? How do those edge cases fit into the way we need to manage our projects? We wanted something that was easily usable, and we wanted self-hosted. We have an internal DevOps team, so we really want to own our data, and having been through several different systems, one of the things I think you can all expect is that as you're managing projects, what you're managing with today may be different in 3 years or maybe different in 5 years. So we really wanted that ability that when the time comes to change to something else, we're in control of where that data lives and we're not tied into that legacy system. We have another firm we work with that's been in business for 15 years, and one of the things we have is when we work with them is it's like, no, it's not in that system. We have to go to this other system to go find that, and so that's a real challenge. So what did we choose? We chose Redmine. It's an open source system built on Ruby on Rails. It's plugin style extensions, much like modules, so it's extendable. Has an open source community, so actually if you go to Ruby on Rails, you'll see where ProMet's contributed development on some of the modules and custom modules for Redmine as we've been working. So what does Redmine do? We can support multiple projects. We have a role-based system, think Drupal, permissions. The permissions are granular. We can have Gantt charts, wikis, time tracking. It'll integrate with a number of different source control systems, and they don't necessarily have to be hosted by us either. So if it's Git, the repository can be on GitHub, it can be on the client. We typically really try to get them to work with Git. It'll also let them create issues via email, work with LDAP. So it does have issue tracking. I don't think there's anything sexy or special about issue tracking. I mean, we all kind of know what this is. So at the issue level, we're able to change this statuses, priorities. These are configurable. I can get my Gantt charts for when is the project scheduled. I can kind of see what's going to be going on with the project. I can configure the users. If we all work in Drupal, so this is kind of a normal configuration screen. Role-based permissions, source code, repo, and viewer. So, as project managers, not everyone's from a development background. What I have found is helpful is as we're working on projects, a project manager may need to know and looks and say, well, on this particular ticket, what were the changes we did for that? What was the work that was done last night? Who worked on it? What did we change? And I'm talking a little bit about context switching. It's also helpful for, if a different project manager, if a different developer, different resources in, they have that without having to go through all of the, do you have my SSH key? Can you get into source control? Do you have that? So it makes it accessible to some of those technical elements that you may not have configured. We are using it for all of our time reporting, so that's available on a granular level. Customizable issue trackers and roles, so if you don't use assigned, resolved, feedback, closed, and rejected for your statuses, I've never worked with any company that had these all the same for some reason. I don't know why that is, but usually there's some variation of custom workflow. You can also customize the individual trackers that are used, and that's on a per project basis. So if you have different activities that you want to track and be able to report under, those are configurable. That's statuses again. Workflow. You can also customize it to add custom fields. So if it does not come with the field that you want to add something else onto an individual ticket, that you can totally add that. The Get integration is on a per project level. So just like I was saying, you can add that to if you're using Github or your own Gitosis, or as long as it has access to that server, you can get to it. We also, just as a matter of course to be agile, give our clients access. So with client access, they have different roles and permissions, so they may not be able to see some of the content that admins or developers are able to share to see, and that can be controlled by a custom level. Your views and queries, very much like views in Drupal. So if you need custom reports, that is pretty super. All right, so I'm going to drop into kind of three areas: project management, business, and I don't remember the third one, but we'll get to it too. So, you kind of have these different areas of what's really needed out of project management. So I'm a project manager, and I'm also a Scrum manager. So, I'm really interested in, what is my backlog? What are the sprints? What are my sprint dates? What are the hours that I have, or what are my story points for that sprint? Where are those on being completed? So someone else may never look at this backlog sprint. I'm really interested in where are my backlogs. This is a plugin called Backlogs for Redmine. It gives me an agile storyboard. So I have my main user stories, and for each sprint, if it's, I don't know what the titles are here, but if the title is configure the Google Analytics or organic groups is going to be a story with more than one task under it. But you create the story, you assign a task, and you can have more than one task underneath a particular story that needs to be done. And those move across just like a Scrum board. Anyone in here use Scrum board type management? So for a distributed team, Scrum kind of advocates that you have this on a big wall in your office, which is really great if all of us worked in the same office. With us having a team in the Philippines, having U.S. workers, sometimes we have contractors working, this gives me a way to just come in the morning and see where did the tickets move in the night, where am I at on a complete story, where am I at on each individual task. Again, a little bit of, so it's a marriage here of process and the tool. So Git, if we tag each one of our Git commits, which we train, work with the dev team to make sure they're doing that. You put the number in there and you can actually see in the Git log where each individual commit ties to a ticket. And in the ticket it will also show each time that Git was updated for that ticket. So I can just at a ticket level, go grab that at a glance. Project information, everyone's familiar with wikis, the way we work these, and this is a process item. This is just a template that we use for each project. And the big gain here has been, this is laid out into a way that is the same for each project. So if I'm going into a project that, Don's managed or David's managed, I can go look at that. I can see, where is the dev environment? Who are my customer contacts? Who is the original developer that worked on this? If I have those questions, that's always in the same place, so it's not a let's go hunt through all the emails and ask the people who worked on it. That information is readily accessible. So, as a part of Scrum, one of the things we also do is I'm very interested in the metrics of my projects for retrospectives. So by having those trackers, now this is not a graph that's actually produced in Redmine, but from that views report that I was showing you earlier, these numbers are really readily available. So I can see when I do the end of each project, I can see these retrospective metrics and see, either by individual or by activity what has, how much effort we've spent on this. And just kind of to take a little side note, since we've started doing this, we've actually changed how we estimate projects. Because what we really saw was, some of the things that we were thinking took a certain amount of time on average. We took more time in meetings, less time in development. Theming was about where we thought it was, but by just having a process and looking at this information and looking at that on each project, it's really helped us kind of optimize our bidding and planning activities. I can also plan, look at projects, how much time is spent on a weekly basis. Another just getting more data out there. So I want to talk a little bit about client and product perspective. So our goal is to, in a Scrum Agile fashion, is to be transparent with our clients about what's going on. And this is a little bit scary depending on what kind of environment you're working on, but we give all of our clients access to Redmine. They can see the tickets, they can read the tickets. You need to read this as developer. You need to make sure you enter appropriate language into your tickets because it's totally clear. Each sprint retrospective with the product owner from the client, they are looking at everything that goes on in here. From a client perspective, we have it set up. Redmine lets you set up projects at a client level and then sub-projects. So if we do work for Media Current, it would have them at the client level, their client level information in the wiki. The wiki would have sub-projects for each project that's done for them. So especially like in a university system, we do a lot of work for higher education. So that's always a number of projects. Those projects may do development, they may or may not have support, but you can almost guarantee that you will always come back to it at some time. So by having that information in sub-projects, even if it's 6 months, a year after that, I can go back and look and see how did that project develop, who worked on it, what modules did we use, what are the comments. It's really increased our ability to service support requests. So how do we do that? We use project templates, and these are just, this is not a feature of Redmine, this is a feature of process. We have a default project, we go in and we copy that. It has the prefab issues, it has the structure for the wiki. The system's not enforcing that. I'm really open if any of you have discovered a system that's better than that. But what I really think is that all of us have different processes, and just defining what your process is and having a template for everyone to follow is going to be easier than trying to find that perfect project that we turn on, or perfect project management tool we turn on and works out of the box for you. Client access roles, we've already talked about that. Just to repeat kind of what I've said, we manage all of the projects the same way in Redmine, and that includes our internal projects. So last week we had an internal project managers meeting. It has a project, it has what our goals are, we track our time in there. It's really helped for keeping track of what are all of our internal activities, and because it's one place and we're not going to the accounting system for one list of information, and we're not going to the issue tracker for a separate list of information, you have a really good vision of, I'm sure none of you have this, but maybe there's a business person or someone that's not related to the process that says, I'm sure you can do that in 5 hours when it's like a 3-day task. This has been really good for, look, the last 6 times we did this, this is how long it took. We should plan for it to take the same amount of time. It's helped rapid scoping. If we can look at a similar project, see how it was done, it gives really good availability to that information. So we've done a couple things for our own improvements. Private notes. We do share this with a client, but we also have the facility to have an internal note. If I'm talking to a developer or something, there may be some communication that you need to have that's in the same system. Not in an email on a ticket, but we did find the need for that. Integration, we've already talked about. Oh, authentication. If you are working with an LDAP system in your organization, it's out of the box. You just turn that on and it works. So I'm going to talk a little bit about business management perspective. So I'm a project manager. We have the owner of the company and the operations manager. So they're not down at that granular level where I am, where I really care about what is the particular commit that goes against Git. What is that exact ticket? They're really interested in looking at, what are the activities that are going on this project, and they're able to develop their own dashboard, be able to get those reports for time reporting and see, at a higher level, where exactly are those. On a day-to-day basis, it has this is what's called the work time module. This is actually my time. But these are all the things that I worked on these days. You can see each individual ticket, how much time. So for snapshotting and reporting, this is part of our support queue. As we can track in progress, open, close. We do company scheduling. So during a normal project planning and weekly planning, all of our 30-person resources, which project they will be working on is scheduled. So, the dev team knows, they look in here. If the project manager's not communicated with them, they know how their time is allocated. That's already in the system. It's already done. All right, so we do use QuickBooks. for our accounting, so it will integrate with other products. We just export the time into there, but honestly, I don't look at QuickBooks at all to view the time. The invoicing from billable, non-billable time, all those reports are exactly what the clients billed. They're actually in the system. It consolidates all of our information into one system, and it's helped us with access and kind of integration. So I've got about 8 minutes here for questions, so the floor is open.
Will this slide deck be available online?
Yes, it's
SlideShare or something?
SlideShare. It's under ProMat Source.
Okay.
It's available now. I think it's probably one that Andy posted up earlier. I just repeat, like, I don't think there's any ideal system, and I think every system is going to be unique for an organization. So you need to really kind of look at what your requirements are. Yeah.
Assuming you all are primarily a Drupal shop, was there any issues with, okay, you're using something built on Ruby on Rails, which takes a rather different set of skills in order to make modules for it? Has that been much of an issue?
No. We also do some iPhone development. My background was .NET, and I've worked in a C. So at some point, it's all programming, and we were really looking for what is the best solution here, and this looked like it was good for us, and we had some internal skills. I would probably evaluate. The answer might have been different if I'd had a lot of resistance to that, or if we didn't have internal skills to extend and support it. Atrium is very compelling. I mean, I think you guys are pretty happy with that.
Happy is a strong term, Johnny. We constantly do this. Are we in the right tool? Conversation internal, and the three that come up are continue on Atrium, look at Redmine, look at Jira. Those are the three we revolve around.
What's the third one?
Jira. Jira is very compelling.
Yeah, and because we use Bitbucket for our Git hosting, it's an Atlassian product, and there's a very tempting. It's very tempting to just step into the whole Atlassian suite and be done with it. That's not a cheap solution in any stretch of the imagination. So,
right.
Because we're only a Drupal shop, we're probably sticking in Open Atrium. We have a harder time moving to something like a Redmine. Without that, I would feel constrained that we couldn't modify it. So that was going to be my question to tack onto is, how much actual Rails coding do you all do to make it different, or is it all more in the system configuration?
Most of it is in the system. I think there is about 150 hours in customization that we've spent, over the last year. We didn't step into full-on Rails. We had a couple resources that had some familiarity with it, and we started out with, much like Drupal, you go to GitHub and you pull something and it doesn't quite work the way you want, so you submitted a patch, and then kind of as we've done that, done the modifications to that, it's like, well, we could write our own on it. So it wasn't, Redmine was pretty good out of the box, but as we've used it, we've added on to it.
So a follow-up question for you, Johnny. When you decided to go with Redmine, how concerned were you over the Redmine versus Chili discussion? And for everyone, Chili is a fork of Redmine.
That was a consideration, and we felt like the Redmine fork had more support and development behind it.
Okay.
With any open source project, it's a concern.
And we're on Atrium right now, and one of our concerns is we don't see, or I don't know of a roadmap for Atrium right now. So,
You know, at the risk of showing my age, you know, I've learned and left a number of technologies, and I assure you that most everything we're working with now will come end of life, and you will have to go to something else. Where and when that is, you know, I don't know, but you know, I will tell you I don't really code in Fox Pro anymore. So, you know, it's just it's a fact of life. And you know, software as a service, the same thing. You know, will that software as a service be around in 5 years? I really don't know. You know, I've had a number of services we bought at different companies, and you get a notice, it's great if we've been bought by this company, you know, and then at some point you get a letter that says, you know, effective Q4 will no longer support. So I think that's a risk for any of this. It's a point in time to pick something good, and then at some point you have a question.
Once the project has been completed or launched, do you continue to use Redmine to keep up with maintenance and support and updates, maybe small features, or do you move to something else at that point to track those things?
We track, so support would be a separate sub-project, and depending on how the contract is structured, depends on whether or not that's multiple sub-projects. So if it's just a bucket of hours, it will be, those hours be tracked and those hours burned down. Some of those are monthly recurring support contracts, so those are tracked as a different type of project, and Redmine lets me define whether it is a development project, a support project, whether it's you know, a fixed cost activity, or whether it's an hourly billing. So we played around with different tools for support, because support is kind of a different animal, but we really felt like having all that information in one place where the support team could go look and see how was the site developed, who worked, you know, occasionally it's like, well, I've got a problem with this module, so who worked on it, or where was it originally done, and that's been very useful. Anyone else?
Yeah. So on the client side of things, we've used different tools just because of ease of use, like Open Atrium. If you try to you know, we got a project working on there that's a high-end dress store. The people that work there can't make heads or tails of Open Atrium.
Yeah.
And almost any other tool on there. So we use Basecamp for that, and then we just do a lot of manual transferring of information into our actual system. Are the Redmine client-facing side of this easier to use than most tools?
I haven't seen anything easier than Basecamp to understand. We've
Yeah.
done some, as part of client intake, we have some training videos that say, you know, this is how the site's used. In my weekly or bi-weekly meetings with the client, we're working out of Redmine. So I still have some clients that I find I just have to go back to Basecamp. Typically they're smaller clients. It depends on what their level is. You know, Redmine is still pretty, for a more technical user. We've recently started using the news module, which what the news module does is it just creates a news item on the overview page. So when I have a meeting, we'll put the meeting notes into that. The meeting notes with, if it's an hourly project, where the hour status on the project is, and that creates an email to everyone on the project that summarizes that and puts it so it's a good client record, and that's kind of helped with making the communication more clear. Some clients don't ever look in and see tickets for their clients. You know, I talk to them throughout the week and they go, yeah, we see where you were working on that. Did you have, you know, you need to know something. So, valid question, but I will end up using Basecamp occasionally if I just can't get any success with Redmine.
So you mentioned exporting the billing information over to QuickBooks. Is that something you can automate, or you just train your operations people how to do that? Or?
The operations people have a report and it just comes out as a CSV and imports directly into QuickBooks.
Is there a mobile interface for Redmine out more than half of my clients and more than half the staff where I work never see a computer. They are on their cell phone.
There are, I have not used them, so I can't speak about it. I know the rest of the team has reviewed some of that, and I just have not, so I couldn't speak to
I
it.
can say on the Android side, some of the apps, they're middling quality at best so far, the ones I found.
I think there's been some discussion internally about did we need to address a mobile app to talk to Redmine. You know, it provides some of the data and feeds. I think that's easily consumable. But I think I do remember some feedback that the apps were kind of mediocre.
So far, so.
Anyone else? All right, well, I think I'm done a few minutes early, but I thank everyone. If you have any questions, you know, we'll be able to